Hey, anyone who happens to be watching, I was a little mad at myself. I was going to stream on my usual time at 2 today. And I was like, well, it's the holiday and no one's probably going to watch or any of that. So I ended up thinking I was going to skip it. And then after about an hour, I was like, what am I doing? Like, you should have just streamed. And I try to, if I'm going to do something like that, I try to like establish it as a habit, like, hey, you're streaming Wednesday and Sunday. So kind of adjust your life accordingly. Um, One of the things, someone asked me a great question on the YouTube comments, and it was a while ago, so I feel bad that I'm just getting to it now. But it was, they asked, how do you get the paint over to kind of look like a painting? And I didn't really think of that. I was like, oh, what are they? And I had a couple more people comment about that, so I had to kind of think about what they were seeing. I don't know if we're like seeing the same things as far as what they feel makes it look like a paint over. And I, what I'm really think they're getting at, and what I'm trying to do is, I'll use this as an example. So a photo. Do I have this photo somewhere? Here we go. So a photograph, you're not seeing something like your real eye would see it, right? The camera's capturing all the detail. If you were looking at like a vehicle or even this model in real life, you're not going to see all that detail on it at once like the camera does. Your eyes are only going to focus on a smaller section. And what part of what I tried to do is take some of that detail away. And I think that is kind of what they were referring to with the question. When you look at, say the legs on this model, what I did, I shaded out a lot of it and put smoke over it and kind of dust and things like that so that it would kind of, recede away from the front of the picture. So that's one of the things I do is, where is it? On this one, it would be a multiply layer. This layer right here, I turn it off and on and see how it's like just so much darker. It adds that whole shadow layer over. That's one of the important things in it for me, as far as how I do it, because you could do this probably a million different ways. But I put that layer over, and then a lot of times it's using the same technique. I either erase some of this shadow layer and then I go over it with a layer called overlay. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the whole picture and then by putting a slight tint over it, I'm making the whole picture recede. So I'm like knocking everything back. But then I go and I apply this overlay layer, and usually I use like a light brush pen. And it'll be, let me show you if I'm looking at it. It'll be like a light pen or a light brush or the Nebula, and I am going to get a few more. Um, I'm going to go buy a couple more brush packs. I'm like at a point where I'm using everything and I want to add some in, so I'm going to end up getting those. But what I do then is on that overlay layer, which you see right here, I am highlighting the areas I want to bring back out. And the reason I use the overlay is because I put a slight tint on the light pen. So usually like a yellow or an orange if it's firing. If it's firing something blue, I'll put a blue on it, right? And it just it what it because of how the layers interact, the overlay layer almost negates what's underneath it. And so, oh, the stream just went down. Slow down a little bit. So it almost just negates what's underneath it, but it also adds that other tint. So that's how you're knocking down some of that detail. And if you look in a lot of the really good paintings for like say Games Workshop or something, they always have, especially the units like in the background or something, they're kind of blurred out. They're not full detail. and they're not, you know, like totally crisp. They're a vague, they're indications. So you're trying to bring some of that like vagueness into the paint over. You don't want, in general, I mean, it's different, um, you know, different techniques involved, or what if you're going for a slightly different look, you may want it all in there because there's a million things you could do that look cool with it. But for me, I'm trying to play with the depth like that. Let me see. Yeah, that's one. You know, in the painting, you're moving a lot of, you're obscuring things, and a lot of times too, what I do is the edges of a model, right? So in a photograph, when I clean it up, you'll have like a basically pixel perfect crisp edge around it. And if someone is painting traditionally, and you're not going to have that perfect of an edge, you know, like a paintbrush, it kind of like bleeds a little, or little bristles touch a little paint elsewhere, or your layers underneath, some of that color bleeds through. And I almost simulate that same effect sometimes by, once that this whole unit is isolated, I will go back and you take like a blending tool and scuff up some of the edges, right? So sometimes I pull it away, from the background, so it looks like the background colors are kind of bleeding into it, and sometimes I pull it the other way, where some of the colors from the model itself would bleed into the. I'll do some right now on this to show you what I'm talking about. Take a like a rust and decay. This will be exaggerated to see, but if you're going that way, I'm starting outside of it and pulling in, and see how, wait, this isn't right. See how it pulls that, I'll kind of go in deep. See how it pulls some of that color over and it diffuses the two. If you went the other way, it would be pulling the gray into there. And it kind of, it just softens the edge and puts like a little bit of haze in there. And what you're trying to simulate is especially in this 40K world, is the way I see it. There's a lot of like haze in the air, and there's little particles and all that. So light and color and everything would be bouncing off all those particles, and you're trying to put it some in there. So you're like simulating a bunch of different stuff like that. Let me see. I want to check to make sure the stream is still going okay. Stream health. All right, stream is good right now. And I want to do this, talk some more about, you know, like there's just a little bit of techniques and follow it through. The next video I'm getting ready to do for the like the little paint over series I have going on, that tutorial. So I should be working on that this week. And I wanted to go over, let me look at this other one. Where is it? This. I do like how this came out. And this one, I approach some of them differently, I guess, depending on the color. Same basic principle on this one, but I didn't want to blur the edges as much, or like push them back. I wanted these to be really bright, like they're Blood Angels, and I remember some of the Blood Angel, like the box artwork, and you know stuff, especially like second or third edition, and you know in the White Dwarf magazines. I forget what issue it was. The White Dwarf, where the one Blood Angel's all gold. You know, just remember that bright and that saturated. So I wanted to keep it nice and crisp like that because it was going to be used as a YouTube header. So I did the very same thing. You can see, even if you take on this one, here's this is the whole layer on it that is tinted, right? And then, let me see, I want to make sure. If I have all these layers, I'll just go through and I will turn all these off. Yeah, I'll try to talk through some of these. I don't know what that one does. That one's probably blank. There. This is what I ended up with. You'll see some of these are faded, and that is to make them fade into the background more. It's kind of the ones in the back, and I didn't want them super crisp. So I literally just like adjusted the transparency slightly so it makes them look more like they're in all the haze and the smoke and that stuff. And then we'll go through kind of one by one. I didn't do the layers in this order, but it's kind of, oops, it's kind of did how I did it. So quick background, and you can see like the blast thing in there. That is from spraying like whatever color around. I put like splatter. I think there's a brush called splatter, and then I put like a perspective blur in there, and then I have to all those. So it's kind of like, hey, I'm having an explosion in the middle. I knew that's the center, and I want your eye to be drawn to the center because that was where the words of the header are going to go, right? So that's kind of it. It makes you focus on there. It's almost like a comic book trick of leading your eye around the page. What do we got? Next layer. This one I knew I was going to want more shadow. I'm like, okay, there's going to be like I want the classic explosion or the bright, colors behind it. And so I'm like, okay, at this point I know I have to have dark. So that is a layer set to multiply, and it's behind all these miniatures. So all the miniatures are in front of it. And set that in and make it darker. So that already you can tell that's starting to make the miniatures pop a little more. They're coming alive. Then I mocked in some of the how I wanted kind of the explosion or whatever, just like the color and the haze with that. So I put that in a nice arc. In the original picture, it's a little bigger because I cropped this one because it was going bigger, so there's more of a sky, so it looks a little different when I worked on it. And at this point, I would have already had this over it. So like probably at that point is when I dropped this layer over it and I started putting in like jetpacks because I'm like, okay, this is the whole thing. So I drop that multiply layer and I push everything back, and then I start, indicating more light. This layer was blank. Oh, that was two. I turned that one off for no reason. It was the two characters. I'm going to turn that off, even though I would have been working a lot with it on. Oh, that's just haze. Sometimes I put it on little layers, like when you see that was just some smoke around it to obscure, like break up the silhouette. So a lot of that is done to, so the lines, you don't just see the nice crisp outlines of this unit. It's things like that break it up. Where else? That was the, obviously the exhaust. I put it in for bright, and a lot of this composition was determined. Oh, of course, I did delete. Huh. I could have showed you, but how the text box work, it's a small 1-inch strip. It's probably it's like a small strip across the center for a YouTube header. But I deleted that so I didn't have to worry about it, and I shouldn't have. Yeah, this one goes back over it. When it's too clear, like that would have been, that's super bright. There's obviously no like dust or haze or dirt in this. I was just mostly indicating the light, and then I start going over and try to get stuff back. Put a little grime in there, put a little like base so they're standing on the ground. Here's more of it. You can see some smoke in there. I do dirt flying up. I put smoke in the exhaust. I put some you can see up here in the sky. What else did I do there? Yeah, more by the wheels. So it's like kicking up, it's obscuring that. It's making it so those edges aren't totally crisp. You can see it this way too. This is always a interesting thing for me. So I learned a lot of this. I was just making up as I go along, right? So when I started, I didn't like look online for tutorials or anything for this. I was just like, well, how do I figure out this problem? Which now I do want to start researching more, like what some of the really good Photoshoppers, what techniques and stuff they're using. Um, this overlay layer, here's another overlay. So what you'll notice me do a lot is there's a bunch of stacks, right? And I leave them and kind of move on sometimes. So I'll probably use more layers than I need to if I was more disciplined. I think as time goes on and my technique gets a little more like honed in, I'll start using less and less layers just because you know really know what you're doing with the ones you're using. And this is nice. So I put the overlay and you start to pull some light. You know, you start to like, okay, I can see this is the bright spot. It's giving it volume. Instead of just that where it's all washed out, you're starting to pull some more out. And you're highlighting which units. The light is all about bringing things to the forefront. Whatever you put light on, it's going to come closer to your eyes and stuff like that. That's another one, getting it glow in there. Because I knew it's too dark for the title and too dark for that, so you need to, keep adding light. That's another layer set to overlay. Put in a bunch of the lasers. The lasers always, I love them. Like that's one of my favorite things about these. Putting like the gunfire in and stuff. And compositionally, I'm usually planning for it, but you don't know till you really start putting them in because they're so bright that if it's in the wrong spot or too big or something like that, they can really detract, I think, or kind of just spoil the composition. So I tend to mock or indicate them and put them in real quick so I can get a sorry, was on I can work on the lighting problem so I don't regret it later. Well, that was a little one. I did this later. I forget what the layer type is. Oh, King Crimson. Thanks for making it. I was doing this. I wanted to talk about some of the art techniques, that I was doing in this because I figured it could be kind of a standalone video, so I wasn't really working out a paint over. I'm just kind of talking some of what's involved. So thank you for stopping by. What kind of layer is this? An add layer. So an add layer, the light is it's almost like an overlay layer, but it tints it even more and it kind of wipes out what's behind it. And going back to the grind, well, I appreciate you swinging in to stay hay. So thank you. Keep working those hours. But get the time off on Wednesday and Sunday to make the stream. Stay out of trouble, Crimson. Yeah, and you can see in there it's real subtle on this, and the layer's probably turned down. Like I didn't do much of it, but you can kind of see what I was trying to do there. I was trying to highlight and give depth just to that single unit. And that's because he's in that centerpiece, and I wanted to, bring him out. You'll see with the electric, I put like Psyker energy. This one's a big layer. So if you watch this, that's a bunch of highlighting. This is a whole nother overlay layer. And so you can see where it went on. Almost all the high edges, almost every unit got some of that. Put it on here. later on his gun is firing. So kind of see, I'm trying to highlight just the general big strokes of like his gun, the front of his chest, his face, where the light would splash off. Foreground unit gets it all on the bikes. Some of them very little, like the guy in the back. I could have put more blue. This guy, it, you run out of time doing all these. I could have had more blue light on him to, do the plasma, and I could have put a little blue on this like cape. So you put that splash lighting around stuff, and that kind of builds into the environment as well. What is this one? Oh, this one, Blood Angels Commander, who commissioned me for this, he brought up the idea. He's like, "Oh, what about the smoke launchers firing?" And at first, I I didn't kind of want, not that I didn't want to, but I was like, well, there's a lot going on, and if I fire the smoke, if I put the smoke in there, it might get a little too clustered. And do I have just two of them firing and the other ones? I didn't know how I was going to handle it. And I did make the correct call of like I went online and was like, look, well, like, let me see how I knew a smoke grenade traditionally, like this world, they don't fire like a normal, like, I don't know, like bullet. There's no big explosion. And I saw they kind of left with a puff of smoke. So I tried to emulate that. Put like just a few little sparks, and then I put smoke, and then I, smudged it so it looked like there was like velocity to the smoke escaping. And I love that this part on the top left is probably like my favorite part of the point over. It's just like this subtle, the smoke right there. And it's the weird thing a little bit about depth. It's kind of like it shows it firing, and you just see like the smoke was streaming down from one of the grenades in front of it, and you just catch it in that top corner. I love that just compositionally for the piece. This is a color dodge layer. So you can see right here what it does. It's just a little bright, and I use that smoke brush. I use the what I call a sparkle brush. I even forget what glimmer I think it is, and I put some of those in like all over. That's like you're trying to do like there's sparks behind the haze, right? Or there's like brighter smoke and stuff. So again, that has a lot to do with creating depth. And it's a color tint layer. So if you look down here on the ground, you'll see that little bit of red tint just pops in there. That's to give some, you're reflecting light. You want a little bit. It's like, hey, this light is kicking some forward, and it's catching the dirt on the ground and the haze. So you're trying to bring some of that color in. So same with under his arm. Instead of having a stark, whatever that is, brown, you just pull a little bit of that red in there. That like it brings the environment together. What is this layer? This is a normal layer. And what did I do here? A lot of the little details. So punching up, you see like on his fist, punching up on his fist, gold, a lot of gold stuff. I did eyes on this layer. Things I wanted to bring forward again: him, eyes, chest, the splatter. What did I do on the ground here? Oh, more here. A little like sparkles. I did the like, I don't know what that is, lightning effect or something. And a little those lines on the ground to get kind of that sense of movement. It's like almost like a comic book cheat where you're drawing speed lines. It's not really a cheat, but you know what I mean. And then a little more stuff right there in the front. Little lights, a little more smoke. Oh yeah, this one has. I put some gray smoke, like it was. I don't know if it's smoke or steam or whatever, but it's kind of ejecting, and that put a little gray. And it was so bright, that was one of the reasons I put this. I liked having the smoke in and that because it needed some like just a little bit of toned down areas because this is awfully bright. This is the time-lapse replay. So that's organizing them all, or starting to, because I had no idea where they were going to end up. So yeah, that was blurring in, putting in that darker background because I knew they were going to be dark because I was going to have this part, that kind of light explosion. I'll let it go again. Putting in the flame of that, mocking in the gunfire early. So I'm like trying to get all my light sources in so I can start highlighting different stuff. That was so after I blocked in most of the like gun flashes for at least these units, I went in and highlighted them in that overlay layer. So this is the whole multiply layer gets put in down here, and then I do the overlay layer and I highlight. You can see them come in right there. There's the safe area that I'm trying to compose in because that's going to be the part like on a phone. If someone goes to Blood Angel Commander's YouTube on the phone, that's basically what you're going to see is that cropped image right there, I believe. This was me trying a different version. I was like, well, let me try, something, because I try not to be tunnel vision where like you get one idea and you're attached to it. I try to, it's like we do a couple sketches and go, but it does seem like more times than not, it is my first inclination that I end up going with. Trying different things. Hopefully no one seizures out because it's all blinking. I just wanted to put the text in there just to kind of see where it would go. I figured and I'm moving all the flying units around for the bigger piece. So a lot of composition work. I dropped in, let me see, 2 units. You see them come in right there, right behind the text there, and that was because it was a little too empty. But I didn't want something that overly competed with the text or thought was real important, so that's why they got diffused. So they're back there, and if you remember at the beginning, I had a couple that were, you could see them, they were faded when I just showed all that layer with just the pics, and that's where I faded them, so they would kind of recede and look more behind the ones in front of it. Atmospheric perspective, that's what it's called. That's when you have smoke and haze or little particles, and you look at like mountains, you'll see it in the art or even photos a lot. The up close ones are obviously like cleaner and the edges look crisper, and as they go you'll see like more and more fog and haze, like till you can't even see them anymore in some cases. I love dropping the dreadnought in there. It worked. And I didn't want the dreadnought's allays got mostly erased because if you're cropped in this view, you don't want weird legs coming down. People will be like wondering where is that, and this is the majority of where you're going to be looking is right here. So that's why a lot of it is just very subtle in there, and I erased a lot of that. There I put in more highlights. Now that's when I put in the exhaust. I was feeling good about it here, and that's when I have a lot of fun. It's always like starts out scary. It's like, oh gosh, especially in these ones where you're piecing together a bunch of models, like because it's not a true photograph composition, a lot of things can be off with it. But when I have something I like and I can just start hitting all the highlights and kind of pulling it all together, that's kind of like the fun part where you're more coasting than stressing it. I put blue. I didn't know. I, you know, the blue, you'll see it. What I don't know what this thing is in the front. I forget the name of it, but I know it's a space marine in a suit. And I put a little blue on the grinding things up front. I was like, I want another color, and it looks kind of metallic because I figure they're all been grinding and half polished or whatever, and maybe it's like a bluish kind of gunmetal type color. And I wanted it to sort of contrast. I'm trying to touch on there's a sword on the right, there's the plasma gun on the left, and then I kind of put the blue there, so it's kind of like the blue elements to pull a little bit of that in. You generally try, if you have a color in it you want in the composition, you generally kind of want to use it in a couple spots, not just one. Smoke so I do these that right there. If you see that thing will pop up right in the center, right there, that's totally because it's a white dwarf where they announced the original. What was it then? Is it Space Marine or Titanicus? I can't remember, but I think it was a John Blanche. I forget how to pronounce his last name, but they had like the rocket blasts, and then they would arc. They would have this like really tight arc on them, and I was like, well, I want to use. I love that because it kind of. I don't know what it was that like stuck with me about that. And I was like, I want to use some, and I'll show you another paint over there in a few. So I'm trying to give the explosion some volume and some like sort of a little bit of action in there. I got one of those. I put water in it. It's just like, I don't know if it's like a thermos bottle or something, but man, it keeps. You put a water from the fridge in there, and it'll keep it cold for like 10 hours. What am I doing? You probably can't even see a lot of this stuff in here. I don't know that you can. I'm like so tempted to go jam a whole bunch of more units in here, and just so the image isn't just for a YouTube header. If it was done just as like a poster thing, there would have been probably more units in. I love glowing blades. This one, his feet bothered me. There was a while. Well, let me find it. Do I have it in here? The feet were. Oh, right here. It looked weird. It had like feet just hanging down on two sides. So if you see above the guy with the banner, you just see those feet, and that bothered me. I was like, that looks dumb. Like, I don't know. So that's how he's up there now, and I put his feet behind the banner totally, so that when I can't even do it. When you crop it, you don't even see his feet. And I brought the other guy on the left down a little, so most of his body is in the composition. What am I doing here? So I do that layer, and I know it needs more light in the center. So there I'm putting some more in the center to bring that brightness in your eye to the center. Little highlights. I make them bright, so that's kind of like power weapons in the background. So I make them bright and then I dull them a little bit just to do that atmospheric haze trick. More laser fire. Didn't want too much. Too much gets a little crazy. I was like, I'll put a couple in, and you see, I put like that. There's a little electrical, almost like lightning type thing. I wanted to the the clouds were so round and smooth. I wanted to get something a little jagged and more straight edge, so that's why I ended up putting that little bit of lightning in there. I can't even see what I'm doing. It's moving and there's all brush strokes in there, but okay, I'm just lighting stuff up. Oh, there I'm working on the guy on the right. Overton, thanks for making it. The plasma pistol. I know. I don't get enamored with my stuff, but I love it captures that the old box covers to me. You know, the bright gun blasts, and I just love that. And I try to get it in a lot of the stuff. And so thanks for even commenting on it. I put some splatter around the splatter. To me, I do that a little like painterly, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to do it real, like it's real light or something coming off. It's more like, personal quote unquote style or something. And you'll notice at the front end, I put a little more of like that electricity crackle. So make it kind of like, I don't know, it's like ripping through the air or something and cracking it. A little light up front. So that dark area, so you see at the bottom left, it's like I have a background, a middle ground. You always want your background elements, your middle ground, and foreground. That's kind of your three keys to kind of getting depth. And the only thing I really have in the foreground in this is the big Centurion. I don't know what they're called. So I was like, well, and you'll notice on quite a few of my paint overs, I'll do a little bit, like, see how it's like light there. It's just a little bit to give a little bit of depth. And that same with this. Oh yeah, you can see how I didn't know what I was doing. So I put um, the smoke launcher. At first, I was doing it like a blast. It's kind of cool because it almost looks animated, but they were too bright. And I was like, I don't think you're bright. And that's when I was like, well, let me look up what an actual smoke grenade looks like. Obitin says absolute realism is for noobs. This shows why they sometimes blow up in the shooter's face. you know, I, there is something like realism loses me as far as like interest. Like I have a great respect for the talent it takes to make something look real, and I think it's definitely a great skill. But like in this, to me, I'm trying to fudge it a little. I'm trying to pull, get it a little more painted and a little more imaginary with the real models. So this is when I looked up, put a little more highlights on his claws. I didn't know what I was doing, so it's like 10 tries to get something that probably no one notices. And then this is when I started like looking at the smoke launcher and I figured out a way to do it. I looked at a real one and I was like, oh, I kind of, once it got here, I kind of liked what that launcher looked like. So I went from there and blurred it a little bit. And then I wanted to, as soon as I did that, I'm like, well, I gotta, if you just left it here, it almost looks weird that there's no, that's like the only spot in this picture where that color and that smoke is. And so I wanted it somewhere, and I didn't want to get carried away because you don't have much room. And that's when I put the stuff in the top left, which I love. This is like the little personal things that I like about a drawing. I'm like, oh, okay, I did that right. Like that was cool. It kind of makes it look like it's in the foreground, but it's out of the way. It's arced, so it clips off that corner visually. So it's another element that's focusing your eye towards the center. We'll let it go. They asked if the psyker here could have some stuff, and you'll see me go through a bunch of versions. I start with like it's probably an overlay layer, so you start there and you see the blues kind of dark, and then I probably tried a different layer. Then I erased it all. I was like, well, put some kind of psychic energy around his head. This is a little blurry. It's higher resolution. I think the playback on this video is lower resolution than what I work in, so this looks a little hazier and blurrier than it does when you're actually doing it. So I tried to put, like the energy would be kind of on his arm. I put a little on his arm there because you don't want it just on his head. It might look funky. And then I'm trying to light it. I was trying with the logo in front. I was like, well, Let me put the logo in there. And then I was right at the end. I was mocking up if I got other units where I might put them, and I was thinking I get carried away, and I never want to end with these. So it was like, what I do here? Two guys on the left, one or two on the right. Like so, the two guys on the left, maybe one's firing, maybe one's charging forward. A main unit kind of in the center, like it was your extra commander, and a couple more filling the gap on the right behind his arm, and then it only pops in for a second. That I wanted a land speeder out there in the top left, like one of those. This is a land speeder. They still have land speeders, don't they? What are they called? I don't even remember anymore in 40K. And I would thought that would be really cool if you had a good photo of the land speeder up in the air, punching through that smoke. That's kind of how that one came to be. What's another one I might look at to give a little breakdown of how I did it? This is one I just was finishing up. This whole picture. Okay, good. Over 10. And that's why I don't know, you know, what you don't really know what people like or whatever. And that's kind of what I was going for. I remember those, the box art, the big pile of Marines all firing, and they're like always in a circle all back to back, holding the wounded ones and everything like that. That's kind of what I wanted. I wanted to do that with miniatures. So thanks for noticing. I love the birds, whatever these vultures are or whatever. This one was a great photo. Let's do the time lapse replay on this. Hey, Annex. Yes, I did. I felt bad because I was like, I'm going to stream, and then I didn't. And then I just, yeah, to me, I have to do habit. I put a background, so I drop, and you'll see that background flashed in there. So I'll take a lot of times, whatever, a photo, a section of some painting or whatever, just to get a background color or a rough composition. And I drop something in to make it give my brain some place to start. Hey, you have a little shadow and a little light. All right, go from there. Instead of trying, a lot of times I would. These are you're trying to do these like on a timeline so you get them done and actually can make money instead of spending make $1 an hour wage doing paint overs forever. So a lot of my techniques are like involved with like getting it done fast. The biannual Rabbit Meat Commission convention. And I put this it's another lighting thing. The I put that orange behind them, a lot of black on that unit, and so that's why I wanted the orange kind of behind him. I wanted those holes in his cape and stuff to see that light through it, so you're kind of framing a nice dark with the light, so you get that contrast. And right there, you can see I probably right there's that overlay layer. So see how that light just bumps up on his chest because I'm trying to draw the focus there. So it's like, okay, wherever you want to draw the eye, make it a little lighter. So that's probably it's an overlay layer, and I'm just punching it up in areas. I did it on him. I did it on that flag, his shield, the guy on the left. And Overton, it seems like there's a lot of really good models coming out from GW. For that matter, a lot of different the smaller sculptors and companies, they've been doing a ton. Everyone's been upping their model game for sure. Trying to do the candle there. This, so you have a whole clean front, right? And it looks, to me, it's like if you're in some volcanic area, you're going to have fumes. You're going to have. I could have blurred more. I didn't think about that, but you know how heat makes everything shimmer and all that. And I try to throw some layers over. If it's too clean, it just doesn't look right to me. So that's where right here that kind of smoke comes in. I was like, well, I have some gray, and I didn't want to use too much color, like too much orange or yellow or something would be like too much. So I literally chose gray because A, it's on the stone, and I'm like, well, yeah, it's fine enough. You would have grayish kind of smoke and stuff coming out, and so I started to put a little bit over. So you're it's that atmospheric haze and perspective to build it up. A little more in front. Yeah, it is. That Ovitson said the 3D sculpting is so amazing now, but the samurai feeling and the slave holding a scroll is just so much style. Yeah, they've they've done brilliantly with like telling a story with their models. So again, like to my eyes, when I was looking here, I'm like, okay, it's too quote unquote clean. Like I'm trying to get that stuff, and so I put where is it right here? There's like I start putting in that's like they call it fire particles. So I'm using a brush to drop in, because I'm like, oh, there would be like, raining in there. I just get that little mountain in the background, right? You see me just trying to. I don't want it to take too much space or anything, but you can just see an indication. And I think at the end I make it a little lighter so it shows up. Yellow. I'll put the more flame coming off the candle. A little more yellow there on the shield. I'm trying to pop those up against the dark. Yeah, Ovitz, and that's. Have you ever referred to coins as shrapnel? And that is generally what I do. I'm trying to use the colors of the model, and obviously there's different ways. You could go way different, and that's a lot of the reasons too why I keep my backgrounds kind of simple. Is I really am trying to get all the attention on the onto the model. So some of them I think for the Mantic work I'm going to get a little more push a little more with the background, and some of those things I got a good batch of photos that I'm going to compose into a picture, and I was glad I did the Blood Angels one because I learned a few things on that, and I want to do like a version of that with Mantic stuff, like one of those like cover type images where they're all fighting and shooting. So the composition will take me a while, but I'm sure I'll get there. God, this one was fun. Mechanical Frog. I'm torn on the really fancy computer slicing of models. On one hand, you get really great details in posing. On the other, limited variation in posing and sometimes hard to piece together. Yeah, I noticed that some people, because of how the seams go, they're like, they're on weird angles and stuff like that. But I don't know. To me, they wait. Is the dog whining? I'm trying to hear if the dog is whining outside. I just fed him, so he shouldn't be. The, the smallest of lines. Yeah, he is. Give me here. I'm going to put another one of these on. I'll leave a time lapse. I'll be back in a minute. What? Oh, I like that one. We'll do this one. I'll leave you with this one. This one's super bright. They print dark. This was done for a print. So some of these, this is probably finished on a whole nother layer. Yeah, we'll see. I'm going to do this time lapse and then I'll be right back in 2 minutes. I am back. Eroos. It's funny. I was kind of like, today and doing all that, and it really does. I can't believe like people show up to my streams. It is just funny. I was like, oh, I'm going to, deal with the dog or whatever. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm feeling charged up now. It's just fun to, I don't know, chit chat with people and talk hobby. This one I went really bright too. This was again, I wanted it kind of box covery, and I remember some of the older ones having the really bright, and I was like, all right, this is a good one to do it on. Age of Sigmar went even brighter than it used to be. And so I was like, let me try to learn some stuff and play into it with this commission. And the person I was doing it for was digging the direction, so I'm like, all right, cool. I'll try to push that really, really bright aspect. And Overton, yeah, I'll go to that cyberpunk one because I liked it too. I want to do there's a couple. So I do the Mantic stuff now, and they have a different aesthetic, different game world. It's not ultra grim dark. Like if it's Dead Zone, it it has its feel. So I've been reading um, more of it in this one too. So I dropped cyberpunk, and I didn't do any real cyberpunky stuff, right? So let me do a time lapse. I dropped in a photo. Oh no, where's the? I don't have the time lapse. Did I delete it? Oh, I must have saved it somewhere. Huh. I gotta have it somewhere. So part of this one, I don't know what it was. Someone like a digital thing or some background. A lot of it is on the floor. I dropped it in for the colors. I was like, let me see what the colors of this looks like instead of me trying to like fight with it. Martin, thank you for making it. Way more people than I thought showed up on a surprise Sunday. I appreciate that. And I wanted it cyberpunky because obviously the model looks cyberpunky to me, and I'm like, well, everything's always smoky and dusty, and so I'm like, let me try to like like play up the lighting and the colors and stuff. And I did hit it right with these angles. I like that the red like slash going across and the blue. You can see it's all just me. Like I did a couple different light effects, and you can see kind of the pen scribbles. thanks, thanks for the backing, Frog. I appreciate it. I bought. It was like the most rigged contest ever, right? But I see Frog in like Discord sometimes, and on Bad Posture Paint. So Bad Posture Paint was literally the first Patreon supporter I got. So I was like, well, Mantic's give me work, and I got Patreon supporters. So I'm like, I want to do like if they were gonna paint something in that, I wanted a couple Patreon members. So I bought a model for Frog that he might one day do on stream, maybe hopefully live stream together or something. I don't know. And then I got one for Bad Posture. What did I just buy him? I just bought the. I talked to him about what he might want. So it was a Veerman drill and then dwarves. Because the Veerman drill, it looks like they would be like a dwarf thing half the time. So he wanted those two. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm like, paint those. I'll use him probably for some paint overs. And then I think with Bad Posture, he's going to send me like half of the painted dwarves because I want some of them, so I can kind of have photographs or look at them, and it'll help me with that stuff. Oh, Frog says hopefully it'll arrive soon. UPS willing. I really shipping has been so messed up. I'm like, if it's there in a couple months, I'll be happy. So hopefully it arrives, but no rush. And so yeah, I did that for those two, and then I think I will do a non-rigged giveaway, so some of the other patrons can get something too. But I figured that way I communicated them off with them, in that where I could kind of get some some extra content out of it, and be able to do some paint overs on that type of thing too. This one was so cool, such something different. It's a tall model. I think it's not 28 millimeter. It's a little bigger, so there's a lot of good stuff going on in this one. And I don't know what I was even talking about, but needless to say, in the some of the Mantic stuff, there's a little more a punkish element like that. COVID delivery, 3 to 485 days exactly. And was dealing with a couple shipments like overseas and stuff. It'd be like months later. I someone sent me they sent pen tips. I bought pen tips so it wouldn't be all this. And Overton, I think she's 75. Yeah, I think she is too. Actually, now that you mention it, and I bought pen tips, and they asked. I think the pen tips are like $7, right, for these, and it was from somewhere in Europe, and they asked if you want like the expensive shipping, and I'm like, oh god, what am I, a $7 pen tip, and then like $14 for like tracking, on the package. It's like, no, just like mail it normal. I'm like, if it doesn't get here, then like it wasn't meant to be. So of course they didn't show up, so I didn't get the pen tips because I didn't get the tracking. But lesson learned. This one was such a great photo. They're really good. Like some of these, when it's a really good storytelling photo, it's almost like where do you start for like a paint over? Like I find a photo with no background is almost easier for me. Like because this already has like awesome lighting going on. It's a great composition. It even has like some of the blur in this really works because you got the foreground units, but they're kind of blurred a little bit. And Toffee Troll. So happy you stream now. Put my child to bed and had some hobby time and are thinking this would be perfect listening to stream. Thank you for making it. Yeah, I'm gonna try to do Sundays. So Wednesdays, Lee and I have that show going on, and I love it. And I was like, okay, I want to keep that because he obviously knows a lot more about what's going on in the game world than I do. So I'm like, okay, we'll keep him because he's a great font of knowledge and has cool stuff and all that. And then I was like, well, let me add to it. And I'm trying this Sunday, like the weekend, and that way I figure more people kind of make it and people in the U.S. Yeah, this one. Let's go through the time lapse of this. I don't even know what I did. Oh yeah, cut out all that background. And right away, I highlight where the model's highlighted because on a lot of this, you're not trying to reinvent the wheel. You know what I mean? It's like I did the same thing here. So I always put it, and then I put that multiply layer over it. This I gave it a purple background because I was like, well, it's going to be kind of orangish in front, so pick its complementary color and see. I was just like, and so I just started punching up right where it had the existing color. And this was a commission, and they said they were like, oh, I wasn't thinking about making it lava like, but because of that light and the color gold or whatever, I was like, well, it's going to look really gold, so I want to make it look like I don't know what it was, like a half molten creature or like maybe molten inside, and hence the drips coming down. It's funny for me to watch these because half the time I don't really know what I'm doing when I'm doing it. Like usually it's just like, oh, I know this has to be lit and I know this has to be lit, and I just kind of keep going around that way. I wasn't sure how I was going to handle the units in front because they're a little lost right now. Like they show up, but see how dark they are, and I didn't know if that bothered me or not. First, I was still wanting to get him right. If I get the big guy with the lighting right, see, yeah, Pompeii the Titan rising from the depths. That's the kind of feeling I was getting. What did I do there? Yeah, I knew I had to have the. So because like right here, the foreground characters are kind of really lost, especially that one on the right, and that's why I put that flame kind of blast right there. It it shows that cart on the left appears more, and it made the guy on the right appear more. And I was like, well, put some light in front of them so the silhouette pops a bit more. I spent a bunch of time trying to get this spear tip totally right, and then I kept wiping it out and starting over. Somewhere in there, I put more highlights on the, yeah, right there. So I think the fighter in the center, I think it's a female. Um, that's where I put some highlights on. It's like I gotta get a little more light. I was like, it's bright behind it, and it's got that glint coming off. It's the light right there. So I'm like I gotta put a little bit of it on there. And even at the bottom left, I did the same. See that smoke come right in there at the bottom left? That's me trying to break up that blue total silhouette. I'm like, well, some smoke would be getting pushed through there and stuff. So I was trying to like bring that color around just to break it up a bit. Sunday live stream, 8 viewers. Thank you very much. I am going to have to do this more often though. I wonder if it's, I start 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so that is what, 7 p.m. UK time. And I don't know if it's like, do I just stay there or do I start at like 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 8 p.m. GMT or London time? So that's the only thing I might tweak it an hour or so. This one was cool too. This one's hard. The full picture ones are hard. I'm not gonna lie. It almost seems like it'd be wrong. It seems like the more you'd have, but they're, oh, the little Gene Stealers. Where do I have the photo of this one? This was an amazing photo. Such a cool scene. And so on this, again, that's why you'll see it go a lot darker in that. I'm trying to wipe a bunch of that out and kind of focus the eye. It's 22. You're in Sweden. I did not know that. Hello to Sweden. 22:30, 10:30. Oh, it's late for you. Haha. Sunday. I get to spend. So I'm taking up your Sunday time. It amazes me that, when I look at, I don't have any crazy views on my YouTube or anything, but what do I have, like 640 hours? I'm like, people collectively spent 640 hours viewing my YouTube videos. Like that's just crazy to me. Let's look at what I did on this one. And I rewatch these sometimes just to see what did I pull off, or I'll revisit it. Um, I'll revisit it like later, just as almost like a recap to see what I pulled off. I knew I wanted the nice glowing table, so that's where I started. I was like, all right, get the light back. So of course I darkened the whole thing, and it's like, wait, that doesn't even look like anything. And so I start trying to bring the light back. I love the tubes and the green vials. Like when I dulled it, you could still they still popped on that. I don't know what this unit is on the left, but I just dug it. It was like cool colors. It had red, it had the yellow, it had the green, and they were all bright. So I was like, well, that's obviously the focal point on the left, and the table's the focal point on the right. I put little bubbles. I did a commission. They're like, I never would have thought of the bubbles and the tubes. That was awesome, and that's what I love because that's to me is like a lot of the fun. Like I would, I would have never put those combination probably of colors for all that, but someone else did, and then it made me think of, hey, let's put like, the bubbles in there so you see it and, stuff. And then they get all excited because they see something they didn't think of. And I guess that's what I'm really chasing after. I want the fun of it. I'm old. I want to have fun while I do stuff. And I'm like, you only live once. So I'm like, I'm going to work hard to try to have fun and work at the same time. I was trying, so things are mostly purple here. And I was trying to look, you can see it, like, I'm trying to, like, do I have some yellow light coming down? And I couldn't really get anything that I really like to work. And it was drawing the eye too much up. Like right here, it was throwing off the composition to me. So I tried a bunch of stuff and I took out most of the light, but I ended up putting the smoke. So that's how the smoke got in there, is because I needed some lighter elements and I wanted to diffuse some of what. Ooh, I wanted to. The battery's getting low. I wanted to diffuse some of what was Artist, Artist Empire International. I What was that movie? It was like Step Brothers, where they had Prestige Worldwide for their stupid, and that's all I think about. Like my whole marketing department would be like Prestige Worldwide. I'm gonna go get a charger, I think, so I can plug this tablet in a minute. I had to put the little, the little matrixy line, so I wanted to make it look like it was, projecting or hollow or hologram or whatever. So that's why I kind of put those lines in there. And I brought them up in the air like it was projected, but just erased them real lot. So there's only a little bit. So Axe seen it. That was like whatever, it was like technology, and you stand there with the gloves and the phone on and stuff, like some 1970s cell phone or something. So when I get big enough, I'm gonna hire Prestige International to, or Prestige Worldwide, to do the marketing. I'm gonna go. Give me 1 second. I'm just gonna grab the other charger. Everything in my studio's trash. I need to clean this place. Whoops. I think that's what I'm doing after this live stream. I'm going to do wave one of cleaning and probably clean more tomorrow. There. We are plugged in and back. Genestealer Cult will always have a big place in my heart, but I never enjoyed playing the army. It'll definitely have a big place in my heart because it was coming out um, when I was reading White Dwarf. So when it first dropped, and it was like, oh, this cool like chaos culty thing, and they're like Genestealers, and I guess for me, I loved the early days because now everything is so described and you have like hundreds of books. I mean, you didn't have any of that then. So all you got was a little glimpse of what the world was like. You'd get some pieces in that, but it wasn't like a whole full story. And there was something about that at the time. It's like very imagination triggering for me because you only got a little bit of it. You didn't get the full backstory, so your mind would just kind of start filling everything in. I like this one. And this was for sale on a model, so I didn't obscure this model really at all. Like, so that's why you see there's not a lot of shadow or anything. This was like, to sell it. So I wanted to keep this one clear, but I pulled off the swamp gas thing. They had incredible that purple lighting on this thing. The painter lit it all from below with purple. And I was like, I gotta try to, make that fit. They had the limousines. What was it? I loved the other thing, the early Imperial Guard, because you'd have like the Beastmen, like guard units, and the penal legions with the bomb collars. Oh gosh, that was always like the useless bomb collars, but it was always like a fantasy to kill some people with bomb collars. God, this one's still one of my favorites. I think that's been brightened up a little. This is what Titans are all about to me. That's a brilliant picture and composition by Lee. And this is the same one. Those are the ripped off Jean Blanche or John Blanche. I can't Blanche. Um, those little arcing whatever. So I put them in there too. They work because it's a lot of straight line laser blasts. It was just something arcy and smooth in there. Yeah, like Han Solo from Star Wars, as if we needed an entire origin movie. We can imagine stuff. Yeah, I mean they're trying to make their money, but I tend to agree, and that's one thing. It's sort of it kept in my mind as far as it just sticks, like that idea, and who knows, like it'll hopefully help me in some sort of, I don't know if it's marketing or creating something or whatever, but that those little tidbits, it's like the little tidbits were more important to me than knowing everything. And so I think it's that sense of mystery. And so, I just kind of keep that in mind, even when I'm drawing or how it converts. I'm like, if you be painting something or leave that sense of mystery, make someone's mind wander and like imagine things. I have nothing. I have like nothing in common with my peers. There's like people my age that I know they're like doctors and doing this, and I'm all like staring at miniatures and making pew pew pew. Like, like, I just crack up at my life. And like I eventually have to get some models and stuff like to be around like when the photography is getting put together. I bet you I could take it to like another level. And now that like someone like Mantic is hiring me to do some pieces, it's like I am like committed to going better and better. If it's going to be in their books and representing their product, and you want the fans to enjoy it, or you want to try to add something to it. So I'm really going to try to like bone up on more techniques, and I may start pulling them into Photoshop or whatever I need to do, because I want to just, I don't know, keep going with it. And I got a chance at like keep making pew pew noises, so I'm gonna roll with it. Growing up is for boring people. It kind of is. Like, I mean, yeah, you got life responsibilities and all that, but I don't take, I don't know. I'm more, are you laughing? Are we having fun? Like, I don't care about, I don't know, being so impressive this, and I have this big mansion, and I don't have time for that. Like, are we having fun and are we laughing? And like, that's all it is for me. I'm like, this is a short trip. I don't have time for thinking I'm important or got something big going on. Like I want, and I thought like this one. I like this kind of stuff. You have people chatting, or make each other laugh, like different stuff like that, and it really that was like one of the big. I did not expect anything close to that when I started doing paint overs. No, I agree with this. So it says your hobby learning curve is not that different from miniature painting perspective. I think totally, and it's very much it's the same concept I noticed. It's like when the people are painting the miniatures, and I'll watch quite a few of the little painting tutorials and stuff. It's layering. It's building the light up so you have the light on the dark and the shadow, and I'm basically doing the same thing. Like I'm layering some of the background so you have an additional element because you're trying to stack some light in the background, and in general, all I'm doing on the model is I'm buffing up their light source. I don't. I try to me that they're the models are the stars, so you're just trying to put them in that light. So I just buff up where their original light sources are at, and then kind of wrap the world around it. Yeah, you got a point with that, Overton. The Rain and Howling. Oh, this one. I don't look at this one. This is still one of my favorites. Sometimes you just luck out, like you like do these, and it's like okay, that really came together. I enjoyed this one. The model was just like this is so 40K to me. It's ridiculous, and it's not something. It's so straight on. A lot of times it wouldn't work, but I think it had all the right elements to pull off like a straight on picture. I loved it. I can't believe you made this thing with all those like screaming people inside there and everything. This is brilliant. What did I do on this one? A yellow, so I just tossed down a purple so I could see it isolate better. A lot of times I grab the base that's already existing and I duplicate it and enlarge it in front. So it's like you're already stacking perspective because you made something bigger. So the sand particles, the rocks, they're all bigger in front than they are in that next layer. So you're already kind of tricking the eye. And it's a quick way for me to build it up. And then you see me like smudge it all around. Petrol. And I got to start drawing and stuff more. I got so much to do. Like I stay, like videos, I want to get better at the videos. And they take me a lot of time. I'm not good with that stuff. But I know it has to be done, but I always like getting the commissions and the work for Mantic. That's always my priority. It's like this is the only reason you got people interested in that is by doing this. So it's like what Dance with the Girl Who Brought You saying or whatever. So I'm like stay focused on that, get all that stuff done, and then YouTube is something you're trying to grow, and I take it seriously, so I work at it. But you know, when I have to allocate my time, I make sure first things first. I want to sell some merch. Like, not that I even like want to make a bunch of money off of it or anything, but I like the idea of having some cool stuff. Like, I think I can do it cool and have some kind of just like I know people in the community enough. I know interacting with you all and like stuff like that. It gives me kind of like a baseline of okay, what are they? I kind of know more what the community is interested in and stuff. And so I just like the idea of I don't even know what. Like even if it's just a silly coffee cup mug with some stuff on it, but things like that, like the t-shirts and the little swag stuff to have out there. So that'll be coming hopefully this I don't know. Before I got to do it before Christmas. It's like the year's already over. Yeah, good thing I just talked about that because it does let me know I have to have some stuff done before Christmas. This is so creepy. I love this picture. Look at that dude up there. That's another reason I like the Adeptus Mechanicus models now, is you can like just slap anything else on them that you want. Yeah, Overton, I think you're totally right on that. I mean, unless someone was like some incredible artist, and even then, it, I I benefited because I was having fun. Like I was just having fun with people in miniatures. So I, I'm not like, I think a lot of people they view the interaction as kind of like, oh, I got to interact with the people. I love doing it. Like it was like it got me through the whole pandemic and everything. So to me, it's just great to chat with everyone. And I mean, I always think about it. I'm like, the miniature community, I think it's overly, like, talent is overrepresented because of all the different things. Everything from photography to painting to you name it. There's a whole bunch of people who are really good at all that stuff. I do overtime. So I have right now. I have the ability. I do it with the prints, and I have it all set up, which is funny. I've had it all set up for over a year now. Shoot, I think I've had my store set up for longer than I've been tweeting. I can't remember, but anyway, it's almost a year or two. But I just didn't put any merch. So the store, I have printers in. It's the U.S. and in the EU. There's a couple over there, so that either place, they'll if it's over in the UK or anywhere in the EU, they'll ship from over there. So that's what I got that set up. So now it's kind of basically build some of the merch that I dig. Arranging bloodthirsters. Yeah, I don't promote it because I didn't have anything out, and I got like, so if you went to artistempire.com and somehow found the store, you would see just these like three werewolf silhouette. I don't know if one's a shirt, one's a mug or whatever. I kind of they're not even like fully polished, but the store um it like wouldn't let me completely turn it off because I don't, maybe I just don't know what I'm doing with it. So you kind of had to have something with it, and so I stripped it all down and then just left those little three things up, and then when I make new merch, I'm gonna kind of swap it out and then start kind of promoting it or whatever. I might see from like Mantic or whatever if they want, I might just for giggles put some stuff on, some mugs and stuff with what I do for them just to send over their way or something. Yeah, I noticed the VAT tax over there is really a whopper. Um, when I noticed like you selling stuff over there, I don't know if it was like 20 some % extra was put on for VAT tax, and I think some of the rules slightly, well, I know obviously with Brexit made a difference, and then I think just a few other things as far as like even U.S. taxes and stuff are getting treated a little different right now. What is the next one? I don't have any of the next models. Yeah, I want some cool ones. I have a couple ideas for like a different couple shirts, little things. I'm trying to think of things that people would actually use, and I a couple with like, because obviously everyone kind of like paints, and I've seen like the mugs around, and I don't want to just do like, hey, here's a paint over on a mug. You know what I mean? I want in my mind, I want it to kind of fit, the community vibe or something more. I'm more of a we person than me, so it's very like it's unnatural to be like, oh, here's my picture on the thing, check it out. Like it's just, so I like the little things. This one came out way better than I thought it would. The water, I love the water on this model. It's like a bunch of mad geniuses running around out there making miniatures. Oh, you did? You on tax? I bought a few brushes and they cost 43% extra to get from the UK to Sweden. Wow, that's crazy. That's like right there too. Such is life these days. I was in GW. I went to Games Workshop and, of course, looking for the new White Dwarf. And I was like, because I'm in the US, so they were like delayed. Of course, the one time you're in it, it gets delayed, but I laughed. So I think they said the orders went up last Friday in the US. So they're probably in the stores this week in this shipment, they said. So I'll probably have to. Mine should come in the mail because I have a subscription. And then I also I also bought like 10 from a, I think it was Mini Stomp. So I was like, hey, can I get some? I was like, I want to cover my bases in case, I'll have a few friends that want them. And then in case anyone who had a model or a paint over that got in there, I just wanted to get some extras in case, someone might be like busy and not even know it's in there. So I wanted to pick up a few extra. Oh, Mechanical Frog, you can always beat taxes. All you have to do is not make any money. Haha, tricked you, government. I make nothing. the I like the red on this. That's one where I kind of lucked out, and it was the same thing. I had the red of the eye and like the little buoy, and that's why I put the red in. I was like, okay, redo the red, and I had like a little bit falling over the water. God, look at the detail. I mean, this is the big one. So I should have known better, but you don't think about it. But this is a 28 millimeter scale Knight. I got called out by Lee because I said at one point it was a Titan, but it's a Knight. So I'm trying not to push fake news out there. So I gotta learn, and I'm so slow with retaining the information for the games. I'm not like reading them and playing them, so it doesn't like soak in a lot. And I've read some of the like the Mantic stuff. I'm really trying to read more and more, and I'm getting more familiar with that stuff just because the better I understand the world, the more cool stuff I can kind of put into it. I feel I'm doing my research. And what was the only part about Mantic, right? So they sent me over some of the rule books to read, so it's like PDF. So I had those. I'm like, oh, so I got the rules for it, and then I happened to look at some of the models, like when I'm ordering them, and I looked at it with Mechanical Frog and with Bad Posture. And I was like, oh, and I asked them, like, they seem very reasonable, like price wise for what you get. And I was kind of like, huh. And so I'm laughing. I'm like, I got the rules, and I'm like, these aren't that expensive. So I'm like, I ordered them. I don't even order them for me at first, right? Of course, that's how probably lazy of a painter as I am. I want to buy models, but I don't even care if they're for me or someone else. So I'll buy them for someone else so they can paint them and do it. And then it's almost like whatever. I bought them for me. I still don't even care. But I'm gonna end up like getting some. There's a few things I wanted in. Oh man, if you didn't see their halflings, they have like these new halfling. I don't have any up here. They really are cool. Like they have halflings on like trolls with the gun. So there's like a troll walking, and then there's a halfling sitting on its back as with a gunner, and so it looks so cool. So I think they've really been upping their. It seems like everybody, right? It seems like everybody in that sphere is like upping their sculpts and their everything else about it. This was their giant. I wanted the little dudes at the feet. At some point, I literally might get another photo and add to this. Get some of the troops that go with this because this thing is, I think he said like 12 inches tall. And I don't know what is this like. I don't even know if it's 30 euro. So it's right around something for that, which is not bad considering. Little sniper. I like this one. I didn't do a whole lot to this one, but I don't think it needed it. It was just the background and a little bit of the lighting. It was such a clean, well done model. I would probably put this in Lightroom. I might take this to Lightroom and adjust it just a little bit. I think it's a little too. It needs a little color saturation in that, and I would just do it in Lightroom if I was really, if it wasn't a free one or whatever. I would be taking it in there to tweak it just a little bit. What did I do on this one? God, they did so cool on that skin. There's so many ways you can paint these models. It blows my mind. There's like, you got like the simple, like nice, clean, and like kind of quote unquote the right way. And then you got like, the more rough painted, and like a looser strokes that I really love, and you have all the way to the gritty Blanjitsu style and everything. And I'm just and you have more dull muted colors on some, and you have really bright popping ones on some. This thing, I love this thing. The chungs, I forget what was he calling them, but this person's army is awesome. They did a whole bunch of these, and they have like furnaces in their chest with the pipe and all that, and it was the same thing for anyone watching who's talking about technique. Thank you very much, Overton, for making it. You have a good evening. I'll probably end up ending in a little while here anyway. And see you around on the internet. This was the same thing. I do the background, and then I put that overlay layer so you can see, or the multiply layer, so see how it just pushes it right back. And then I put the overlay layer and I start bringing it back. That's generally how I start approaching the light. And then I go and start making it even brighter. And I love always, you have some of these like really hot, like molten weapons and stuff. I always love the dripping sparks and the like the metal. It's like this harsh world where flame is everywhere. That's what I liked about, what was it, this picture over here. Where is it? This one. I love that at the bottom, see these little units? Those are actually units. Same with over here. And I just, and I love the idea that this huge thing is walking over them and it fired or whatever, and it's just like falling plasma, right? So you're like, everyone's battling and you're shooting at this stuff, but then your own units are just like dripping plasma onto your army that's trying to fight below. Like, what a brutal way to go. You survive the onslaught of the enemy titans and the foot troops and everything, and then your titan fires and just a big blob of plasma lands on you. What an appropriate grimdark way to go. God, I'm excited for the Mantic stuff. I was gonna start it today, but I didn't. I'm gonna end up doing it tomorrow. I'm gonna go on a cleaning spree tomorrow and then work. And now, I think like the other day, I was like, well, I'm gonna take the day off. So I don't even think I did all stuff during the day, and it was about right around 7 at night, right? I'm like, oh, whatever. I'll turn on TV and like, let me just work on the paint over. So I started working at 7, and went till like 11:30. So it was at 4.5 hours. So I'm like, I took the day off and still ended up working 4.5 hours or 5 hours or something. But I didn't mind because I got stuff done and I was ahead for today. And I'll probably, like, I'll take this video and I'll go back and maybe clip it down and, edit the front, or, edit it together so that it's basically just talking about the techniques. Because I think as people came in here, I wandered a little bit, but I enjoy that. I still really like this one too. Had that tree in there. Oh, Adam from Tabletop Minions. I know their game is really doing good, Rain in Hell, and I'm glad because I want to end up doing more stuff with them hopefully in the future because take some really good pictures. I think, oh, I don't have them on here. I saved them in a folder and I had to delete them because I was making room for everything. There's a photo I took. This is one I should go over too because I took this photo and it's a bad photo, right? So it's not really good. It's a little blurry. What it has going for it, that normally for a miniature you would never take a photo like this, right? It's like way overexposed on the top. So all those light sources completely blind out the color. But for my purposes, it absolutely worked, and I'm gonna put this on the blog. Come to think of it, because if you look on like the the collar part and that little piece broken off in front, the highlights on top really make that have depth, and the same thing with the light on the top. So because it's overexposed, and I kind of knew what I was going to be doing anyway, after I clean it up, that tinted layer, I knew it was going to add color to that, and I knew it was going to give it depth if done right. So I kind of, it's not, see how there it's like overexposed. By tinting it, you're giving it some color so you're not totally killing it. Put some light. You got the black torso. It's really dark, so I wanted to put some light behind it, and I had light coming over the arm, so I wanted to have a light source there. So that's kind of how the light got placed on this one. A little more color. With the color again, it gets rid of that overexposed look. So there's definitely some tricks you can do in the photography that work for paint overs that you wouldn't traditionally use. I really like this one. That was oh gosh, why the name? Whatever, I can't remember. I can't remember them all. Daz Dillinger. Um, he sent me the. He painted three of these, right? And they're ambots. I don't know if they're ambots. And they're Mechanicus, and he made them dark Mechanicus. And just as like a thank you, sent them to me. So he painted them all. I didn't buy the models. He had the models. So basically, buys the models, paints them all, and mails them to me. All is just like thank you, what I mean, for painting over, being part of the community or whatever. And I'm just like, wow, that is so wild. Like it's funny to me because you have friends in real life that aren't sending you stuff, and this is a random person I don't know online who spends money on miniatures, paints them all, and then mails them to me. Like that's just cool. Vehicles. Oh, I like the orc vehicles. Wah wah. when I get to the other thing is I can start doing is I can literally start kind of animating these. And at some point, that's going to be happening. Like, I want to, I got to keep honing in on the paint overs and stuff, but there's some stuff in the back of my mind that is already like kind of in motion and that I'm building towards. So I'm like, I don't know. This is like, I'm like, how much can you really kind of make it doing paint overs? Like it's like this weird thing of it's not, that's not really a thing or so I don't know. You're kind of creating something or trying to get more and more work doing it to keep doing it. And right now I keep going. It seems, possible. So I just keep chugging away. God, what a great model. Orc vehicles are still one of my favorite things in 40K. I know their playstyle. The only thing about the orcs is their playstyle does not suit my playstyle. White Dwarf exclusive. White Dwarf exclusive. So this was on Lyle Lowry, the editor of White Dwarf. So this was his models. I really like these flying models. I was glad when this one came together. Like, I never interacted with them that much, especially at the beginning. And, when the editor of White Dwarf was like, hey, would you paint over models? I'm like, oh gosh, do not botch this one. That was nice. That came out well. Right? I like the smoke, like in the top left, it gives it. Heroes, I should have yours. I think I do. Wait, let me see on the. Well, I know I still have them. It's just whether or not I took them off the. I stored them. Some I take off only because they're like made super large. Yours refresh. I think I got yours on. Yours were the. It had the killer can in it, correct? Where are we at? No, this isn't it. Or was that it? I want to see. Why am I not? Oh yeah, the orc warwas with the tank. I don't know. That one might be saved in my master files because I went through a whole chunk. I think I did. It's like this is almost like saved in chronological order. And I gotta go through and take a whole bunch. I hate taking them off. I almost want to buy a whole other iPad just so I don't have to take these off. I may. Oh gosh, it's so scary spending all the money. It's like a full, like the newest iPad, right? All jacked up, and I would need it all jacked up because it would legit be for work where it's like $3,000. And the thing is, though, this tablet doesn't have it, but the new one with the M1 processor, you can push like full Photoshop on this thing. And I'm like, like the tablet keeps me drawing, so I carry it everywhere. And like a lot of, even if I sit down for like, if you're using Photoshop on a PC, it's like totally different at the desk or whatever. And if I have Photoshop on a tablet, that might be a whole nother level of stuff. So I'm like, man, if I get, the more work and I stock up some of the money, I might spring for it. But I want to make sure it's not like an impulse buy and it's something that I really. No, it's not on here right now, Erus. I will have to. It's saved in my files. I never hear much about War Machine anymore. And that was what's funny is a friend of mine had it who lives way across the country, and I saw him like I don't know 6 7 years ago, and he brought that over and it actually played really fun. But and I thought it was big or whatever, and I haven't seen much about it, so I don't know what. I know they're still putting out stuff. I like this one. It's a real simple one, but I dig it. I gotta do more of these. I always want to do all these. I love the ones with its two models fighting. So somehow I want to try to do more with the two models fighting. It's hard working together with people for the compositions because they get very specific. Oh, matter of fact, I gotta go give the dog some medicine and stuff. I think I'm gonna draw more. I think we're at a point where I'll be ending the stream soon. I'm gonna do a couple chores. Fall, I want to do some more like this too with the leaves and stuff. This one's a little rough in a way, but I still dig the concept. White dwarf baby. God, I don't hate it. I'm glad. At least I don't look at. I have a thing with. I don't know. A lot of my artwork, I look at like whatever, and I'm so glad that a lot of these held up to me. I look at, I'm like, okay, cool. It doesn't like bother me now, even though it's like a year after you did it. So that I know I'm like, all right, you're on the right track. It's like that's the most. Some people like really like their artwork or whatever. I'll be like, if it doesn't bother me, then I'm okay. It's like, no, it's my art. It doesn't bother me. That's my standard of success. The picture doesn't bother me. Oh, I love the wings on this thing. I learned a few techniques since this one that almost makes me want to go mess with a few things on here. I really dug that. In this is one of those you don't do too much to, but it gets a lot of good response. A lot of people have liked this. I've seen some people reviewing the magazine and stuff and commented on this one. Such a brilliant photo. And I can't remember the person's name, but they do a whole bunch of really good stuff. Well, everyone, I'm going to go tend to some things. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll probably end up editing this at some point to take the good content out of it to help people with some paint overs. I've seen quite a few people doing them. That's cool. So I've seen like different ones pop up and they're doing their spin on it and everything. So see you all on the interwebs. Stay safe out there. Later, Mechanical Frog. And Mechanical, I think, I don't know what your plan is for next Sunday, but keep in mind maybe if you want to come on and work on stuff or whatever. So we'll kind of, I'm going to put in the regular Sunday schedule and start doing it like a job. So I'll make sure I schedule in the regular and I'll start looking. I like guests on there. I don't want to have two paint over shows. I'm like, okay, you're doing too many. Like, so at some of like the Sunday stuff, at some point, I'm going to try to do a little hobbying and things like that. So something a little different on the Sunday shows. Maybe I don't know if it's reviews or whatever, just like a little mixed content where I'll still do the paint over things on Wednesday, and then sometimes on Sunday too. But just with a little, I want to try things. I'm like, okay, if you're gonna be YouTubing and doing that, like really like put in the effort and try different stuff and you know get a show going on or whatever. But first step was today. I was trying to run away from it, but I'm like, just do it. So thanks for the encouragement, all, especially you, Mechanical Frog, that got me going to do this today. And appreciate everyone who stopped by. Have a good evening.